What's going on, Redheads? Welcome back to Readpool. This is our third installment in the series. We are taking a look at every appearance of Deadpool in Marvel Comics in mostly chronological order. We've got some cool comics to check out today here. We're going to be looking at X-Force number 11, which sort of wraps up the plots that Rob Liefeld had been setting up in X-Force over the first year of the book. We're going to be taking a quick look at Deadpool's appearance in X-Force Annual 1, and then we'll be jumping over to the final parts of what I believe was Rob Liefeld's main plot on X-Force throughout the first year, as all of the plot threads come to a head when Deadpool and Cable face off in front of Tolliver, and the rest of the X-Force team rescues Roberto from the clutches of Gideon and the rest of the X-Ternals. So let's take a look here at our first comic for the day, which actually is going to happen before X-Force 11. We need to dip back real fast to X-Force 10. X-Force 10 is the first issue after basically Liefeld's last issue as artist on the comic. Issue 9 was his final issue for Marvel. He goes on from there. Around I believe it was the same month, in fact, Youngblood comes out at Image. And so we get the final pieces of his initial run at Marvel at this time. And in issue 10, we start a very short run by the artist Mark Pacella, who winds up also joining Liefeld over at Extreme Studios. Issue 10 here was an attempt to start to tie together all of the disparate plots that had been happening in the background of X-Force since the beginning of the series. X-Force has finally beaten the New Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They had thought that Sam Guthrie had died. It turned out he had not. Sauron impaled him. Guthrie does die, but he comes back. And we discover that he was an external. And so this was part of Cable's reason and finding the New Mutants and taking them under his wing. Gideon is about to discover that he has the wrong mutant. This is going to go very badly for Berto. But in the meantime, on this final page of the issue, we jump back to Tolliver. Tolliver mentions that Vanessa hasn't checked in a while, and Deadpool knows exactly how long it's been since Vanessa has checked in. And it turns out that this Vanessa is also Domino? Is that what? We don't quite know what's happening in the arc of the story at this point. This is the first time that we learn that Domino may not be who she has said that she really is. And so the next issue that we get from there, X-Force number 11. This right here is Rob Liefeld's final illustration of Deadpool before leaving Marvel Comics to go to Image full time. This is it. You got his little signature down here. Also, I believe inked by Trevor Scott. Trevor Scott, of course, goes on to ink Scott Clark at Wildstorm. So Liefeld, this is his final cover for X-Force. And, you know, for all of the ink that we spill about Liefeld being the creator of Deadpool, his initial output on the character reduces down to less than 22 actual pages. That's not a lot to go off of with this character. And I'm not gonna bash him because he did create this character. It's just so surprising the way that we talk about Deadpool and the way that we associate him with Liefeld. And I think, you know, if you dig in, you can find some arguments and conversations with Fabian Nicieza where he does feel like he actually sort of created this character in the sense that he shaped the character, shaped how the character thought, and evolved the character into a more three-dimensional merc with a mouth versus what we saw in those initial appearances. Classic Liefeld pose on the cover. Very clear, he like drew 3 cool shots of these characters and then they were like, well, where are they? I don't know. Hey, Trevor Scott, just... So here we go. X-Force moving down into the mutant Morlock tunnels at the time. And these are all the evil Morlocks that did want to take X-Force down. And here's Cable. Morlocks, hear me, Mask is dead. Do any of you want to join your fallen leader? Here's Thorn, She's Farrell's sister. She was a Morlock. She was with the Brotherhood. She has been beaten and whipped. I don't think the whipping was necessary. I feel like you could have just, subdued her and contained her. This feels excessive. By the way, again, Mark Pacella, guest pencils here, Dan Panosian inks. If you're a fan of Dan Panosian's art today, you'll notice that this looks very, very different from his output now. Pacella is very clearly trying to do some type of Liefeld copycat here. And you just look at how he designs Sam's face, the way the collar comes up on the jacket. But the cable is very much Pacella. You could see Pacella's work in a year or two on Dooms 4. He really leans into these bigger, muscle-bound characters. He does these pretty well. Once he sort of finds his own voice, finds his form. Really awkward shot of James Proudstar here. How big is that neck? It looks like he just has a neck and his head should be here, but they just painted a face on the neck. Interesting. We cut back to the X-Force headquarters, which are now beneath the Adirondack Mountains. Boy, these guys have just not had a permanent home since the start of this series. Constantly just kind of bouncing around from place to place. First it was the Danger Zone, now we're in the Adirondack Mountains, and we won't be here for much longer, but we'll get to that by the end of this episode. But here's Shatterstar just doing some training, and hey, look at this. For the first time, we get some Deadpool voiceover. So this is the first time we're getting in Wade Wilson's head, right? Watching this punk Shatterstar has been kind of fun. Non-stop for over an hour. Makes Jane Fonda look like a couch potato. I don't know that Jane Fonda's, trying to do ring exercises. She was much more, aerobic, but I get it. Just seeing him go, you got to admire the kid's gumption. Of course, now I've learned at least 35 different weaknesses in his fighting technique. Wade's still kind of talking like a cowboy here as they're figuring out his voice. So what do? I'm here to smack some sense into Vanessa, not jerk around with Cable's diaper brigade. And he decides, after, look at Shatterstar, so proud of himself for getting this bleep blorp kind of looking dude. It doesn't look like that was much of a fight for you, bro. And we've got Teresa, aka Siren, knocked out on the ground here. I'm assuming he just took the back, like the hilt of his sword, and knocked her out because he's holding the sword, doesn't have any other weapons, and she's out cold. I see no blood, and that's good. Oh, but he decides, you know what? F it. I actually want to go toe-to-toe with Pretty Boy here. Hey, Pretty Boy, cowabunga, dude! And my favorite made-up exclamation from a comic book, "Das Vid." I love language, I love words, I love what we do with them in comic books. Comics were how I really learned to read as a kid, and so, getting the secret language coming from comics. You could say stuff like this, no one knew what you were talking about. Deadpool kick. Again, like I said, really trying to do that Liefeld homage, just doing this sort of horizontal bars in the background. We do get a little bit more detail with the glass, which is more than I think we'd get from a Liefeld shot, but classic Liefeld kick there. Shatterstar, oh, how could I forget you? Another open taint shot. Now here's the thing, we see so many people leap like this in X-Force. You're over here, just like a quick punch to the grundle, and there's no way Deadpool's doing anything after that. Ooh, entertainment this month. I loved these ads because this was basically previews if you didn't have access to previews. So entertainment this month would run ads that would show you what was coming out in a couple of months. So this would be basically what you'd see, and then you'd call entertainment this month and you'd order, this stuff, and then in a couple of months when it came out, they'd ship the comics to you. You know how it works now. I did it once in 1996, I believe, and it felt so complicated and it took forever for the comics to get to me. This is sort of right before Marvel Series 3 trading cards. We talked about those in the last installment of Readpool, how all of the sort of cosmic backgrounds on the cards lined up with each other, blew our tiny little minds as kids. You've got a rollout for Infinity War here. That's just about to kick off. And Spider-Man's 30th anniversary. Hey, we're about to see Spider-Man 2099 for the first time. We're also about to learn that Peter's parents are still alive. And of course, here is the launch of Youngblood Spawn Dragon, the first 3 Image Comics titles. Hot! Hot. Entertainment this month would always tell you everything's hot. Ghost Rider title will be hot! There will be 5 all-new holograms. Okay, these aren't going to be hot. Can't miss! They just loved using that sort of marketing language all over this page. So I don't know if you knew this, but Shatterstar's secondary mutation, an ever-growing ponytail. It's as long as it needs to be. Just kind of like Spawn's chains. It's pretty cool. I don't understand how physics work in the Mojo verse, but tables get turned, Deadpool. I do like this undershot and knocking him right in the solar plexus here. This feels like interesting because it's not quite Marvel method. We're like mid-action here. Usually Marvel method, you want to extend the arm all the way. But I do think this is pretty cool. So he knocks out Shatterstar with a punch to the solar plexus, and then he says, hey, I'm going to go chat with my girl. And so now, all of a sudden, we see Domino. This is the first time we've seen her kind of like looking through the files of the other X-Men, but Deadpool creeping up on who we think is Domino. And then, boom! How's about me next? Oh, you forgot so soon, honey? Let me remind you, it's your old boyfriend, Deadpool. Oh, the plot thickens. So what should I call you, Vanessa or Domino? Wait, what are you talking about, bro? Meanwhile, scunch. Is that the noise that you'd think a forehead would make against a keyboard? I'd imagine the scunch is coming more from the sounds they programmed into the keys every time you press them, sort of like haptic response. So, you know, you're just typing away and all you hear is scunch, 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 scunch. But Domino turning the tables. Hey, get out of here, Wade. You're going to ruin everything, Wade. Oh boy, you already did that the moment you took on this job and the second you started to care about it. Ooh, so she's in deep and she's caught feelings. And we know that because, you know, if you've been following X-Force as well at the time, we watched Cable and Domino share a bathtub together at one point. This Domino, at least. Now, you screwed up, Vanessa. Mr. Tolliver ain't real happy with you right now. Why haven't you reported in for so long? So this Domino, aka Vanessa, has been spying on Cable and X-Force for Tolliver. So she showed up, and also, by the way, this is the same one that shot Deadpool in the back with knives in his first appearance. She took him out the very first time she appeared in a New Mutants comic. They appeared for the first time in the same comic together. Following all this stupidity, can't believe you give a hoot about Cable and his Zit Patrol. That's what this book should have been called, Cable and the Zit Patrol. Unfortunately, none of those words spelled with an X. And X's equaled $signs in the 90s. Answer move, cracked. So she decides that the top of her head isn't enough to headbutt him with. She's going to headbutt him with her chin, I guess. There's just like a lot of extension here. But she gets out of there, cracks him in the face, into jaw again. And that's it, Vanessa. From here on out, no more Mr. Nice Pool. You really ticked him off. Grabs her, throws her into the wall. Talk to me, girl. When you tell me you ain't falling for Cable, this is still just a job for you. She says, I can't tell you that. Uh-oh. Domino is now in too deep. And I'm still calling her Domino at this point. We don't really know what's going on, do we? And I can't help but bust up that pretty little face of yours some more, even if it is someone else's face. Okay, so we don't have any idea what's happening here, but we do get Shapow! Or is that Skupow? Almost looks like Shadow. Rare miss from Chris Iliopoulos here. Right? Iliopoulos? We'll check later. But Domino kicks Deadpool in what I assume is the dick based on the placement so hard that the strings loosen on the pouches on his belt. But he was apparently wearing a cup, or I don't know, has a stretchy dick or something, because it barely affects him. And he hulks up and beats the crap out of her. And then, just so sexual here, so phallic, just rubbing his sword over top of her, right? And he reminds her, don't forget who you are and where you came from. You can dump on me, but don't dump on Tolliver. Because you and I both know that when the gig's done, you're still Vanessa and you're still Tolliver property. And you know what happens when he loses what's rightfully his. Ooh, that's a threat and a promise. It's the threat of a promise, the promise of a threat. Just consider it a friendly reminder. Don't make me come back to tell you again, because I won't be so nice next time. So Deadpool just shows up, beats the shit out of her, says, hey, check in once in a while, and then leaves. All right, big man. And that is the end of Deadpool's involvement in this issue, but real quick, I just want to cover this because this will be relevant to the issues that we look at in a second. GW Bridge and Kane still talking to each other. We're still trying to build and assemble a team to take down Cable. Last issue, Kane decided, I am in. You're right about Cable. And now Bridge does a classic standing shit pose. And as soon as he's done taking a dump, we get a 2-page reveal of the new Weapon Prime. And classic, we've got another brand new character here that we haven't seen before this. This is Tiger Strike. And don't worry, gang, you're gonna learn even less about him than you do from his name because he can fly. Why the fuck is he called Tiger Strike? I don't know. Anyways, this is the new Weapon Prime. They're here to take down Cable. Oh God, don't even get me started on this game. This game was garbage. Look at these instructions. They are so hard to follow. And this is the one that pisses me off the most. When locating a single item character on the grid, enter the coordinates of the box in which it's predominantly found. What do you mean? If you asked me to tell me what grid placement Silver Surfer is in, he's literally in 4 different grids. And you know, this feels like a big part of the grid, but so you actually just want his board because that's not the Silver Surfer. That's the Silver Surfer's board. What a stupid, terrible game this is. Look, we've carved up the Hulk almost into 4 equal pieces. So it calls out Hulk and says, hey, what coordinates are the Hulk on? What do you guess? God, what a ripoff. I'm just so mad at this game. It was just the ultimate Marvel trivia game. Fuck you. But then we get Tolliver walking down into his little dungeon with, you know, Creepzilla, the Keymaster here. Pico, I believe. Was it Pico? Pico. Don't worry, it doesn't make any sense, and we don't really need to know this guy for more than this installment of Readpool, but he reveals that we've got Domino and these big-ass holding things that we saw a couple of issues ago, but we've got Domino in the basement here. So this must be the real Domino. Have we even met her yet? Well, we're going to find that out later because enter Cruel next issue with his beautiful purple face and his awesome orange ponytail. So let's take a quick pause from here because the next time that Wade shows up is in the pages of X-Force Annual #1. And this had a publication, so this is from 1992. And if I remember correctly, this basically came out around the same time as issue 11, or maybe even the month before. But this was part of a time in which Marvel was grouping together annuals to tell multi-part stories across those annuals. So X-Men, X-Force, and a couple other X books were part of a crossover called Shattershot. This story makes no fucking sense. Do not worry yourself about the main story in this book. Well, the one cool thing about the main story in this book is that, and you can tell by this cover illustration, this is the first time that we see X-Force illustrations by Greg Capullo and Harry Candelario. So we're going to see them come over to X-Force in a couple of issues. This seems like it was almost the tryout for the main book, and you can kind of see, you know, you get that Greg Capullo goodness all through. But pick this up because we want to look at the final story, the final backup story in this book. And it is called Know Your Enemy, penciled by Sando Flore. You could tell this is just, what an insane. How long do you think it takes him to put these on in the morning? Does Professor have to help him? I cannot imagine that. Like, how do you train to wear shoulder pads that big? How much do they weigh? Also, just want to point out real fast, written by Dan Slott early in his career as well. But this is just a backup that they put in annuals where it's like, hey, let's get everyone together and you guys can tell our fans who our enemies are, right? So, hey, X-Force wants you to show me these prime threats and each of you tell us who they are, all right? So this is just a way to show you a bunch of different characters. And of course, this is the only place where Deadpool shows up right here. Domino, who at the time would have also been Vanessa. Cable says, hey, tell us who this is on the screen. Now that's Deadpool, the best killing machine money can buy. Best defense would be offering him a better price. So they're talking about who these characters are and what the best method is to take them down, right? We don't even really talk about Tolliver here because honestly, who cares about Tolliver? And of course, the Brotherhood of Mutants. And again, trying to do some sort of Liefeld. This looks like an homage to the cover of X-Force 5. What a mess. Couple quick pinups. Tom Rainey. Yeah, Tom Rainey's art was either super dope to me or terrible to look at. This one, super dope category. Okay, so at this point, X-Force 12 and 13 happen before we see Deadpool again. To catch you up there, X-Force returns to their headquarters to find out that Domino isn't who she says that she is. They also find out that Gideon is going to experiment on Roberto because he's realized that Sam is the external and not Sunspot. So they decide that they're going to split up. X-Force is going to go try to rescue Roberto, while Cable and this Domino are going to go find Tolliver and figure out what's going on and where is the real Domino, or did they brainwash Domino? No one knows what's happening. But before any of this can take place, Weapon Prime shows up at X-Force's headquarters. And there's a huge fight that happens between the two of them. They blow up everything. Grey Malkin gets most of the tech that's in the base, and then Cable blows the base up. He gets separated. He and Domino / Vanessa gets separated from the rest of the team. He thinks they're all dead. They think he's dead. It's very early, all new, uncanny X-Men, where Beast and Professor Xavier and Jean Grey thought the rest of the X-Men were dead. It turns out they were in the Savage Land, etc., etc. That's sort of what we've got going on here. The rest of the X-Men decide they're going to continue their mission. They're going to try to find Roberto, but Cruel comes after them again, and now they've got to do something to stop this unbeatable external that's chasing them down. And that brings us to X-Force 14. Now this issue is the last issue we're going to have before we find our next permanent artist on X-Force, which, as we'd mentioned, is Greg Capullo. But for now, Mark Pasella has wrapped his short stint on the book, and we have journeyman artist Terry Shoemaker doing guest pencils and Al Milgram on inks. I'm sorry, you might be a really nice guy, Al, but I just don't care for Al's artwork, inking or drawing, or honestly, even his stories are pretty pedestrian to me as well. Personal preference thing. This is right after they've detonated the base. Cable climbs up out of a waterfall flowing out away from the Adirondack Mountains bunker that has just blown up, quote-unquote Domino in tow. The overriding, the explosive charges we set in the bunker, killing my entire unit. See, all dead because of you. You're going to pay for this, Tolliver. You're going to die. So he's furious about that, but they just reveal they're okay too. And look, they saved Weapon Prime. And the way they did this was Guthrie expanded his blast field to kind of protect everyone and make them nigh invulnerable while he's blasting. Cable says, well, funk that. I've got other stuff to do. Straps more guns than an entire infantry can hold onto his back and is like, let's go kill Tolliver. I hate his hat. Roadhog. Sky. Road Sky Hog? Roadhog. Wait, what? And when would this have happened? Who would have done, whatever. Tell it to, yeah, you know what? Explain it to someone who cares. Oh, and so I should mention too that they did recruit Richter onto Weapon Prime. You might have seen him in that double page splash in issue 11, but he realizes, oh, you know, he actually doesn't want anyone to die either, and so he shakes Kane's gun apart here, and he's like, look, they're still my friends. You can't shoot them, right? And, okay, so it's looking like Richter is flipping back to X-Force, because Richter still thinks that Cable killed his dad, and, you know, everyone's like, listen, I don't think that's the case, but we can get to the bottom of it together. You got to come back. And so, you know, this is sort of the turning point for the action. And hey, check it out, Farrell, Sam making quick work of all of these S.H.I.E.L.D. geeks. I love a S.H.I.E.L.D. belt buckle. How long do you have to be employed by S.H.I.E.L.D. to get one of those, or do you get it on the first day? Maybe you get a white one and then you have to earn the gold. So many questions about the operating procedures at S.H.I.E.L.D. They've commandeered the ship, they've locked up all the S.H.I.E.L.D. guys, and they're like, look, we don't have beef with you. We've got to go get our friend. All right, and they're like, you're looking at it, Kane, you're in theft of a S.H.I.E.L.D. property in your list of crimes, and Richter's like, we're kind of borrowing it. And, you know, Kane's like, dude, you're going to be an outlaw. He's like, you've been cool with me, but I've always been one of them. Hey, Richter's back with the gang. No need to even ask, Rick, if you want to come back. Let's roll. X-Force, we are out of here. So once again, just dumps all these idiots on the side of the road, takes one of their vehicles, and drives off to try to save Roberto, who is also in one of these trap your arms and hands. Man, where did Tolliver and Gideon go to get these in bulk? You know, Terry Shoemaker does do an okay job in here. I mentioned earlier he's a bit of a journeyman artist. I never appreciated his pencils at this time because it just felt like oddly thick, and I don't know, I didn't really like it. Go and check his work out digitally though. I think that it does more justice to his art. He does do a pretty thin line and it looks better digitally. Again, we've talked about this before. When you put this stuff on newsprint, the newsprint just like soaks the ink up. And so what I think are supposed to be much thinner lines, like over here, kind of, you know, bleed out just a little bit and make them look awkwardly thicker. And it just doesn't lend itself very well to that art style, especially if you can tell he's still sort of trying to do that crosshatch and horizontal line thing that we're used to on the book with Liefeld's art. You know, we're starting to drift away from that, but yeah, it just all overall kind of takes away from the art. If you check this issue out digitally, drop a comment on this video and let me know what you thought. Do you agree? Do you feel like it displays better digitally? Here we go. It's cruel. I have come for the boy High Lord. Sam Guthrie, prepare to have your branches severed. Prepare to learn that even an immortal can die. What do you think his voice sounds like if he has spiky things off of his speech bubbles with the extra border around it? Oh, really? I have come for the boy, High Lord. Samuel Guthrie, prepare to have your branches severed. I like that. I like that. A little more jowls in it. Prepare to learn that even an immortal can die. There you go. Now we've got this sewer tunnel. Just this, hey, we're in a sewer tunnel in Sardinia, Italy. Sardinia, Italy. Are you sure this is the right one? He usually stays in his castle in Austria, but lately he's been doing more business with his Sicilian associates. Sure, whatever. But we crawl in through the one video game escape access tunnel, which just like doesn't exist in real life. And there we go. Oh, this grate will lead to the basement. What? Like, I don't even know where the vents in my own home lead, let alone where a vent on the side of a mountain leads into the inside of a castle. But what the hell do I know? And hey, Pico got his little electric sex whip going on here. But who gives a shit, because boom! Sorry, zam! Zam! A midget with an electrical whip. Right. This is the best panel in the first 2 years of X-Force. I'm going to say it right here. This right here. This should be a meme. This panel should be a meme already, but we can't meme it too long because she says, "Oh Lord, I didn't know." Know what? I swear to you, I didn't know. Domino is still alive, and now Cable knows it too. Cable, it's about time. Is it really you? Then who's this? She says, they told me she was dead. If I'd known the real Domino was and we don't know what she's gonna say because she just got side in the back. Tell him time and time again, keep your mouth shut. And we know what that speech bubble looks like because it's from this dude. But women, you know, they just don't listen. You listen though, don't you, Nate? Then hear this, it's time to die. Oh boy, next issue, we get Cable versus Deadpool round 2. Anyway, here we go. X-Force 15, the debut of Greg Capullo on the book. A really cool fight between Deadpool and Cable, and also a little bit of a design update on Deadpool as well. Cruel. Jumping into the helicarrier, which is very funny because we just saw him jump in and knock out Sam Guthrie, but it looks like he's going to do it again. I'm assuming that these issues were being worked on concurrently, and this is just one of those things where there was not any communication between one artist, the editor, and the other artist. But it's time to go to the pain. Greg Capullo is here. Al Milgrom guest inker, which is a bummer. We get Herod Candelario soon, and then we get Richard Bennett after that for a little bit. I loved Bennett's work, but we'll get there. Actually, we won't get there. Flip it over. So Cruel, and you can see Guthrie standing upright again. And this is very similar to the Spider-Man 16 X-Force 4 situation we had during the during that crossover story. So Cruel, but yeah, leave it to Shatterstar. And by the way, we've got enough room for a jumping knockdown drag out in a fast-moving vehicle in the air that has had a hole blown in it or its windshield shattered. Either way, they shouldn't be able to hear each other. The wind should be blowing them into the walls with as fast as this is traveling. They're just so much more environmental issues should be happening at the moment. Cruel, by the way, had been a character for like, what, 1 minute? He debuts in like June of 1992. And by the fall, he has his own X-Force action figure. This character does nothing in the lore of X-Force and X-Men, but that just goes to show you how much of a license to print money everything with an X in front of it was in the early 90s. Any character shows up for half a panel, they're turning him into an action figure. Let's effing go. I love this shot of Proudstar. Again, the thickest neck in the game. The thumbs up is really funny here. But immediately too, what I love is Capullo immediately with his storytelling, panel layouts, and confidence in art. You just feel like you're in great hands visually with this comic. But we've wrapped up that part of the story, and now let's get to the meat of why we're here, Cable versus Deadpool. And immediately, you'll notice there is a bit of a design difference on Deadpool. Check this out. Capullo liked to draw Deadpool. You can see it over here a little bit better, with this sort of pointed shot, very much more Spawn, I think, than what we'd seen where Liefeld and everyone else had drawn these as like ovals, right? Even Pat O'Leaf when he showed up in Nomad, these are ovals. And so Capullo gives it a little more of a sinister edge, which is like, you know, capital C cool at that time, but I do prefer the rounded eyes on Deadpool's mask. Here we go, Cable being like, what is going on? Cable's just had his mind completely rocked. Here's his best friend who he thought was her, but she just been stabbed and we think she might be dead. And then Deadpool shows up and Cable is just like, what? You just like killed her, but she's over there? What is going on? You've been hanging with my babe Vanessa for months while the real Domino's been a guest of Mr. Tolliver. Ah, boy. No! Oh, my dear Nathan, yes! At last, after all these years, after all the games, you are here and you are mine. Deadpool, kill the Forever Cancer. Kill him now. The Forever Cancer was the original name of the Cable miniseries that comes out shortly after this. No, it wasn't. A pleasure as well as a paycheck. And wow, again, man, Deadpool loves exposing his taint and daring anyone to just attack that Grundle. Cable's pissed. There we go. And again, just like really awesome staging and shot choices. Who cares? Like, why does he have spikes on his boot? You know what? Who cares? It's supposed to be provocative. Capullo with these layouts. Look at this shot. We did not have, I think, anybody doing layouts this good on the book, except for Mignola in that one issue. Capullo very much does bring that style and substance to everything that he does. Mano a cabeza. I love that. Just beating the hell out of Deadpool. And you can see Tolliver being like, oh, all right, I'm gonna head out. I love this shot of Deadpool. This is a very Rob Liefeld Deadpool pose here. This classic kick. I love it. Puts Cable's head in the wall. Cable's pissed. They're going back and forth. And again, too, the dynamicism and the fight itself is so much easier to read. You know, the action displays clearly. You understand how he winds up in this position based on how he's drawn in this position. Oh, the fight, you say. Okay, you're right. Your life, you say. Corrects. Sayonara, Nate. Scrapoom. What? Yeah, that was my reaction, Nate. We just get this, like, I imagine there had to have been an actual shot of him getting hit in the back, and we had to, what, get rid of it? Like, it looks like he is completely disintegrated here, right? Like, it looks like he doesn't even have a skull anymore. And I wonder if Capullo drew that, and they were like, we cannot have that on here. And so they just redrew a fucking tunnel. Okay. But either way, Deadpool is just like an empty costume now. And it looks like Deadpool's sword sprung me. Oh, yeah, there you go. See? He swung, missed, and freed her. So she runs over, grabs a gun. Vanessa's gun iced him. Pretty ironic, huh? I don't think that's how you use ironic. Let's talk to Alanis Morissette about that. I'd like nothing more right now than for us to go do something private. They kept alluding to that all the time. Like, it was just always like, hey, are these guys gonna fuck or what? They're in a bathtub together. They're doing weird flirting in front of the teens, and the teens are like, well, you two just fuck. And it turns out Berto's okay, Sam's okay, everybody's okay, and they're finally free. They don't have anyone chasing them right now. People think that they're dead. They think people think they're dead. They are in New Mexico on the reservation of James Proudstar's former tribe, who have all unfortunately been killed. Ready for liftoff. All right, Tolliver's villa in Sicily. So these clowns somehow got all the way from the castle to this villa. Ready for liftoff, and this is just Tolliver. I don't know why he's running out the door, but shump, no way, Tolliver, it's not gonna be that easy. And so these two goons jump onto the helicopter. Cable's like, I need you to get out of here and find, you'll never survive the fall if you don't jump now, which is like kind of a bullshit answer, and we'll see why in a second. But he's like, yo, find my X-Force team, help them through this, tell them I'll be back. Not quite to me, my X-Men, but this is Domino, and she jumps in the water. Cable's like, I gotta take care of this freak. All right. And hey, look, Cable can just phew from his fingers. Sure, why not? We just need something to happen here. And Tolliver's like, oh shit, fire in the hole, Tolliver. Tolliver says, no, it can't happen this way. Consider my debt to you paid off in full, crack-a-thwoom, right? So he jumps out of, I don't know how the helicopter exploded. I didn't see him plant a bomb or anything. But then he body slides by one. Bro, you could have just done that with Domino. You did it earlier. You've done it multiple times. But then we see Tolliver, oh, god damn it. His trench coat, his hat, a mask. So apparently he's been wearing a mask this whole time, even though we never saw his fucking face. I am done with Tolliver. I don't want to see or hear about Tolliver ever again, and unfortunately that is not an option with this series. But see Domino get up out, a little bit of cheesecake action there, find X-Force, help them, you'll be back. Okay, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, but I'll do it. And then we cut back to inside the villa. All right, so ouch, man, oh man, Petey the dog tagged me, but not good enough. Where'd everyone go? Hey, Vanessa. Ooh, you got away. Oh, no problem, babe. There's always tomorrow. And then Deadpool ports away. So we don't really know that Deadpool has a healing factor, right? So this is sort of the first time we learn that he's a lot tougher than we made him out to be. There might be a bit more metahuman in him than we realize. Because we just know he's really good at jumping around and being an assassin, and he has a teleportation device. Other than that, what powers does he have? We haven't even seen under the mask really yet. This is the first time that we see that the skin's all messed up here. And we think this is because of the laser blast. We'll learn later that's what he's like all the time. So from here, Cable takes off for a mini-series called Blood and Metal that John Romita Jr. draws. Liefeld was originally supposed to draw it. All of the fallout from Image means he's not going to draw it. Still a pretty interesting miniseries. We get a lot more backstory about both Cable and Strife over there. And in the meantime, X-Force decides they're going to hang out in New Mexico at the reservation. This is going to be their new home for, I don't know, a couple of seconds, because the next issue of this book starts the Executioner song crossover. And so Cable winds up getting involved in that as well, and X-Force gets involved in it. The X-Men wind up arresting X-Force, throwing them in the basement of the X-Mansion. Meanwhile, Cable tries to get a posse together to stop Strife, because he has just learned that Strife has the same face he does, and he needs to get to the bottom of that. But that is a story for another time. We have wrapped another episode of Readpool. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Have you read this stuff before? Is this your first time going through it? What kind of Deadpool fan are you? This is such an interesting time in Deadpool's life. We have now said goodbye to the creator of the character, and we are from here about to venture into the final stories where Deadpool is just a guest star. But for now, please like and subscribe if you liked what you saw here. Drop a comment. The algo loves those things. The algorithm loves when you comment on my videos, so please do so. And let me know what you think. Otherwise, I will see you next time here for another installment of Readpool.